introduction in a moment, but I'm going to take a minute of personal privilege. We are all honored to be represented by a true fighter for justice in the Senate. I'm particularly honored, and I don't know if the Senator remembers this, but the fact is that she has represented me through every stage of her career. When she was a county supervisor, I lived in San Anselmo. She was a member of Congress. I lived here in Marin, and of course I still live here, and I'm now represented by her in the Senate, so it's been a true privilege. But you probably know this, but let me just remind you, Senator Boxer is a forceful advocate for families, children, consumers, the environment, and the state of California. Barbara Boxer became a United States Senator in January of 1993 after 10 years of service in the House of Representatives. Elected to her third term in 2004, she received more than 6.9 million votes, the highest total for any Senate candidate in American history. A leader on environmental protection, Senator Boxer is the first woman to chair the U.S. Senate's Environment and Public Works Committee. On the committee, she advocates forcefully for clean air and water and the fight against global warming. In addition, Senator Boxer also serves on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and Commerce Committee, is the Democratic Chief Deputy Whip, and serves on the Democratic Policy Committee on Oversight and Investigations. I'm exhausted just reading the list. She's been married to Stuart Boxer for 45 years, has 2 children, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandsons. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Senator Boxer.
All the honorables out there coming back to the place where it all started for me. And Judy's shaking her head because she remembers. But I'm also really glad to be here with Barack. He's my buddy. He's my colleague, and he's going to make an extraordinary president. Election. And we're facing momentous problems. And I have to say that this race isn't over, and you know that, and that's why you're here. And I want to start off by thanking you from the bottom of my heart for being here. We are so fortunate to live where we live, in a state that gets it, in a state that understands, in a state that has the values right. We value work, we value working families, we value equal justice. That's why we're going to vote no on Prop 8. And it's why I was able to tell Barack when I saw him last, you know, we've got it covered in California. And that's why the Barack campaign understands that we need to help them. And I understand you're making calls into New Mexico, is that right, today? And you've got the call sheets here. You know, New Mexico, that's our neighbor. They are such a swing state. And I have to say, you know, like all of us in this room, I know we're all fanatic about this race. I know, you know, Stu's got to the point where he says, if you tell me one more poll number, I'm going to go crazy. Here's a poll with this, and here's a poll with that, but this poll says, and he said, can't take it anymore. Larry David wrote a little piece, I don't know how many of you saw it, he's one of my favorite comedians, and he says, he cannot talk to anybody that doesn't agree with him. He cannot watch television. He turns it off. He gets obnoxious. He screams at the television. You know, we really need to get back to normal. Where at least we can talk to people who have a little bit of a different view. We've got to get past this election. But what we do know from all these polls, and people say to me, you know, why do the polls differ? Well, I think you know this, you're sophisticated, but in case you don't, I want to tell you about every time I run, you know, we always have a hard time. And by the way, don't forget, 2010, we're going to do it again. But the thing about me is I can't leave my country until it's on the right track, you know. And being the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, being in a position to make sure we're launching the energy independence policy that Barack is going to bring us, and I'll be in that seat helping to fight global warming. I also have the public works side, which is infrastructure, which is what we need to invest in now to get out of this terrible recession we're in, to make sure it doesn't get deeper, deeper, deeper. We need to pull together, and that's why it's a momentous election. But getting back to the polls, every time I run, you know, it's always scary, and we have a pollster in-house who goes out and tells us how we're doing. And there are 3 scenarios that Mark Melman tells me about every single, you know, day when we get toward the end. And the 3 scenarios have to do with voter turnout. And, you know, always for me, in the very, very large voter turnout, you know, I'm just running away with the race. And in a medium turnout, I'm doing okay. I'm winning by an okay margin. And in a very low turnout, I'm losing. You understand? So all of this talk about polls doesn't mean a thing, because it tells you what registered voters are thinking. Then they try to say likely voters, but they don't know. So the young people have it in their hands, and when you call into New Mexico and it's a young voter, I mean, the pitch is pretty obvious. It's definitely their future. And, you know, it doesn't do any good to go to rallies and cheer, or go to even campaign headquarters and cheer. Gotta cast that vote. It's a precious, precious right. And we're going to make sure, by the way, because we have legal teams all over, that right is protected. They told me that you wanted to ask me some questions, and I figured as much. It's Marin. So I have some time, and instead of just yik-yakking more and more, I'll close this portion by telling you that, you know, it's a nostalgic time for me to come back. It's where everything did start for me. You had the faith in me, you saw something in me, you stuck with me when the rest of the state said, "Who is she again? What's her name?" And it's just, you know, made my life everything I wanted to be. And I know Stu's here somewhere. Where is he? In the back, of course. There's Stu. 46 years married. 46 years married. You know, when I first ran for Congress, he said, "Well, how long do you think you're going to do this thing?" I said, "Oh, I don't think more than 2 terms. That would be 4 years, honey." He said, "Okay, I'll be behind you. 4 years is good." Oh my God, that was 1982, and was so then when I ran for the Senate, we both said, "Well, we don't have to worry. We're never going to win this one. You know, it's going to be impossible." We're running against Leo McCarthy, may he rest in peace. You know, he had 55% of the polls, and I was an asterisk. And Stu said, "Well, you go for it. We'll have a good time, you know, and you're not going to win." And I said, "You're right, but we'll just go for the gold, and we'll tell it like it is, and it'll be a great way, and then I'll come home, it'll be great." And you guys saw it differently, and off we went to the Senate. So I want to thank you for that, and I'll open it up to any questions you may have. Thank you. Yes.